I'm the Executive Director of the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office. I'm looking through the chat and I'm seeing that we have quite a few persons joining us from the Caribbean and also further apart. I'd like to acknowledge and welcome the World Intellectual Property Organization, and you'll see on screen Debbie. Debbie, I always massacre your name, so I'm gonna say, could you please say your name?
My name is Debbie Running.
It's like Debbie. running.
Debbie Running.
Debbie is sufficient.
Thank you, Debbie. And David Mulls from the IIPO. This morning, we're going to be focusing on how to use the Madrid system. We have quite a distinguished panel who is going to be presenting and sharing with us. So as I mentioned before, we have Mr. David Mulls, who is the Senior Director at the Madrid Registry Brands and Design Sector, and he's located in Geneva in Switzerland. And we have Ms. Debbie Running, who is the Director of the Madrid Legal Division, the Madrid Registry Brands and Design Sector, also in Geneva, Switzerland, and the World Intellectual Property Organization. And Mr. Peter Baker, who is the Senior Project Manager, Business Application Architecture Section, and Benoit Aperce, who is Manager, hi Peter, and Benoit, who is the Manager Communications and Information, Madrid Information and Promotion Division from the Madrid Registry, also from the Brands and Design Sector of the World Intellectual Property Organization. And we also have our very own Adrian Thompson, who is the manager for the Trademarks, Designs and Geographical Indications branch here at the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office. And we are also quite blessed this morning to have the presence of our very own minister with responsibility for the Jamaica, where JIPO is an agency of the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, and Senator the Honorable Aubin Hill is supposed to be joining us to bring, okay. And Minister, I just got a note, Minister Hill is having internet issues this morning. So he's trying to join us, but what I'm gonna do is I am going to exercise chairman's privilege and I'm gonna lay hands on David suddenly. And I'm gonna invite David to do his presentation. And David, I may interrupt you if the minister joins because I know he has another appointment after us. So if that is okay with you, sure. I'm going to invite you to do your presentation now. So welcome to everyone. And I look forward to quite an interesting and successful webinar. Thank you. Over to you, David.
Thank you, Lily Claire. It's not actually a presentation. I just wanted to make a few opening remarks for the session. The first thing I wanted to obviously do was to say how honored we are with Senator Aubin Hill's presence, but we'll see when he comes aboard, then I'll say a few words if he comes in on time. The first thing I would like to say is that we are extremely grateful to Lily Claire and her team, because we have been working for many years with Lily Claire and her team, and we always wanted to get Jamaica in the Madrid system, and it's thanks to her support and her encouragement that it has worked. So this is definitely one of the first things we would like to say, is express our gratitude for this very fruitful cooperation. Of course, in WIPO, we are always happy when there is a new Madrid member. Big or small country, we are always happy. But it's true that we were especially happy with Jamaica. It was a particularly joyous event because Jamaica is such a brand. I mean, the country has such a brand, and we thought it was particularly appropriate to have a country with such a clear brand recognition to become a part of the Madrid family. So it's like a doubly joyous occasion. I'd like to spend just very briefly, give you an overview of the Madrid system with some historical perspective, because the Madrid system is a very old system. The system was created in the 19th century. And there have been really 3 phases to the Madrid system. and we are in the third phase. The first phase was from its creation at the end of the 19th century until about 100 years later, the 80s, 90s of the 20th century, 1980, 1990. That was the first phase. And in that first phase, the system was really essentially used in Europe. There were some other members, but it was. Oh, I can see that the minister has joined us, and maybe it would be appropriate if I just hold
Thank you,
for a moment.
David.
Yeah, no problem.
Yes, please. Thank you. Good morning, Minister Hill. I understand you were having some internet issues, so you missed our acknowledgement of you. So I'm going to do it again. So I was saying that the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office.
Okay, Lily Claire, only you can do that.
Agency of the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce is pleased to have Senator Orbin Hill as our minister with responsibility for intellectual property matters. As I mentioned earlier, Mr. Hill is aware of intellectual property and has actually written articles about the protection of geographical indications. So we at JIPO have a particular affinity with the minister. We feel he's here, especially for us here at JIPO, because intellectual property is something that's near and dear to his heart. So we're quite happy to have Minister join us this morning. I don't know what happened. I'm not seeing his face anymore. This is scary. Minister, are you hearing? Ooh. Well, he is having internet issues, so I don't know if he has lost connection. This is Murphy's Law. Something can go wrong with it. No, that's Debbie. I don't know what's happening. I don't see him at all. It almost appears as if he's gone.
Lily, if you want, I can continue.
Yes, David. And
okay.
When he comes, I won't say anything. We'll just allow him to speak.
But if he comes in, do you want me to stop again? Yeah, I'm happy to. It's not a problem.
Yes, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Just if I don't, just give me a sign or something. Okay.
David, you're on mute.
Okay. No, I'm not.
No, you are.
We couldn't hear you for a second.
We couldn't hear you. Okay.
It's the connection. Okay. So I was just saying that there were 3 periods to the history of the Madrid system. It's a very old system. It was created in the 19th century. And the first period was a period of about 100 years until the late 80s, early 90s, when the system was mostly used by the European countries, mostly. So it's essentially a European system. And then what happened was, in Europe, they created the EU mark, unitary mark for the whole of Europe. And it was important for the Madrid system to get members from other regions than Europe, because otherwise in Europe it might not have been used that much anymore, because the European trademark was the solution mostly if you're interested in protection in Europe. So it was important around the 80s and 90s to make sure that the Madrid system became a worldwide system in terms of membership. So that's the second phase. Starting from the late 80s, early 90s, the focus of WIPO was to try to make sure that the Madrid system evolved from a European system to a worldwide system. And that has been very successful. We now have about 126 countries covered. We still have some way to go. For instance, the PCT, the equivalent in patents, has around 150 countries. So we still have some way to go, but we have largely succeeded in converting the system into a worldwide system. And now we're in the third phase. And the third phase really is a phase where we need to get the system to be used more in the new countries. Because if you look at the usage of the system by the private sector, the usage is a lot Europe still, a lot United States, China uses it a lot, but many of the new members especially the smaller ones, don't use it yet as much as they could. And we believe that this is to the detriment of the rights holders in those countries, because essentially the Madrid system makes it easier and cheaper to protect your interests abroad. So the third phase is a shift in focus for us, where we will now try to focus more on getting users to use the Madrid system also in smaller and developing countries. And this is the third phase, which we really started, I would say, last year. And because in every country, even the smallest country, businesses have trademarks, we really think this system is useful for all countries, even developing countries, more perhaps than a patent system, because as soon as you export, you have to protect your trademarks abroad, and the Madrid system helps you to do that. And we think that more and more small companies, SMEs, will be able to export because of the internet phenomenon. If you look, for instance, in China, there are a huge number of very small companies that sell objects or products in different jurisdictions using the internet. So clearly, there is a huge potential there, even for smaller companies. But it's important that they realize that they need to protect their trademarks abroad. Lily Claire, shall I stop?
Yes, please, David. All right, Minister, I'm going to invite you to present, please. We don't want to lose you again.
Well, Mr. David Mulls, Senior Director, Madrid Registry Brands and Design Sector, WIPO. Ms. Debbie Roning, Director, Madrid Legal Division of WIPO. Mr. Benoit appears, and if you'll forgive me if I get that accent wrong, Manager, Communications and Information, Madrid Information and Promotion Division of the Madrid Registry. Ms. Andreen Thompson, Manager, Trademarks, Design and Geographical Indications, Branch of JIPO. Ms. Lily Claire Bellamy, Executive Director of JIPO, and I'm very particularly grateful for Lily Claire for all the work she and her team have done to get this to this point. The JIPO and WIPO teams, media practitioners, of course, ladies and gentlemen. In June 2021, the Jamaica Trademarks Act 1999 was amended to allow for the implementation of the Madrid Protocol in Jamaica. On December 27th, 2021, Jamaica deposited the instrument of accession to the Madrid Protocol at the World Intellectual Property Organization, making Jamaica the 110th member of that treaty. The Madrid Protocol entered into force in Jamaica on March 27th, 2022, last month. With 126 member states, the protocol makes it possible to register trademarks in many countries by filing a single international application designating several countries which protection is being sought. It is one of the most important intellectual property treaties in the world. It is used by individuals, companies, research institutions, and MSMEs around the world to acquire international protection for their valuable trademark and brands. The Madrid Protocol is included in the Madrid system for the international registration of marks, which is governed by two treaties. The Madrid Agreement concerning the international registration of marks, 198, and the Madrid Protocol relating to the Madrid Agreement, adopted in 1989 and entered into force on December 1, 1995. The Madrid Protocol will not replace the national trademark system. Rather, it will operate as a parallel basis and provide an alternative or alternate means of registration through an international system. With the Madrid system, the process of multinational trademark registration is streamlined through a single application and management process. Consequently, Jamaican applicant may file one application in English with a JIPO and thereafter pay one fee to WIPO to obtain an international registration effective in the member countries of the Madrid Protocol selected by the trademark owner. This is fabulous for small countries, frankly, and big countries too, but this is especially useful to Jamaican businesses who can make this one filing in one place, and then you get coverage in so many other countries. The Madrid Protocol allows for a centralized filing procedure for international registration of marks through the Jamaican International Property Office in the English language. One set of applicable rules for the international registration of marks is another benefit. A third is fees being paid in one currency, including one set of administrative fees paid to the World Intellectual Property Organization. Jamaica's accession to the protocol is expected to result in us being designated for the international registration of trademarks. This would be beneficial to Jamaica as it will, among other things, simplify the application process for the international registration of trademarks, improve access for local trademark owners to foreign markets, and increase revenue for the government of Jamaica through the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, something we look forward to, Lily Claire. Jamaica's accession to your legal colleagues may have another view, but I'm very happy with that view. Jamaica's accession to the Madrid Protocol signals additional global opportunities for growth and for facilitating the ease of doing business both within and outside Jamaica. Our products are exported to over 70 countries worldwide. Manufacturers of these products will be able to use the Madrid Protocol to secure trademark protection in other countries that are members of the protocol, resulting in cost savings to our business people. Jamaica's major trading partners, including Canada, China, the European Union, the United Kingdom, and of course the USA, are all members of the protocol. The Madrid Protocol also simplifies significantly the registration and management of trademarks. It is now possible to record subsequent changes, such as a change in ownership, or to renew the trademark registration through a simple single procedural step with the International Bureau of World Intellectual Property Organization. Therefore, accession to the Madrid Protocol will benefit the business sector, creative industries, sporting professionals, and we have a few of those, as well as the general public who wish to protect their trademarks in foreign markets where they apply their goods and services. It will also open up new markets through the establishment of a convenient and practical avenue for registering and managing trademarks internationally, and is a clear indicator to potential investors of the government's commitment to increase business opportunities, strengthening intellectual property rights, and facilitating economic growth and development. The Ministry thanks Mrs. Lily Claire Bellamy, Executive Director, and the entire Jaipur team for spearheading this and other international intellectual property initiatives, leading the growth and development of Jamaica, and in particular, of the MSME sector. Jamaica looks forward to continued fruitful relationship with WIPO as we strengthen our national intellectual property ecosystem. We wish everyone participating in today's webinar every success in learning and using the Madrid Protocol to your particular advantage. And I want to add a personal note. I have been very, very interested and closely associated with the Jamaica Intellectual Property Organization through Lily Claire and her colleagues, but especially through Lily Claire. I've watched it over the years before I was in cabinet. And now that I'm in cabinet, I want to make it absolutely clear that these moves and associations by Jamaica and Jaipur are completely supported by this ministry and this minister. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. Thank you very much for that. And it ties in quite well with some of the points that were raised by David about the importance of small island states, and in particular Jamaica, with our well-known brand, having the Madrid Protocol system in place. So thank you so much for that intervention, Minister. And David, thank you for yielding to allow Minister to speak. And I'm going to hand the baton back to you to use the boys and girls champs, which I was speaking about earlier, because we're having that event. And that is where a number of our athletes develop, and then the whole issue of protecting their brands becomes extremely relevant. So back to you, David. Thank you. Thanks again, Minister. We really appreciate your intervention.
Thank you. First of all, Minister Hill, we are greatly honored by your presence. It's a sign of the commitment of the country to the system. We also know you're quite expert in IP, and I believe you've written something, as Lily Claire said, about GIs, which is a particularly touchy subject on the international scene. So we are very happy and proud to have you with us for this session. I just want to hook into what you said. The situation with the Madrid system is the following. It's now a worldwide system. We cover 126 countries, but the use of the system is still concentrated in the older members that are primarily in Europe and some very large new members, typically the United States and China. They use the system a lot. But in the newer countries, the smaller countries, the newer countries, the use has not yet been as extensive as it could be. And we believe this is against the interest of the country, because as you rightly said, if you use the Madrid system, it's usually much cheaper and easier to get your trademark protection abroad. So since last year, since the start of the new Director General, we've shifted our focus a bit. And we are going to focus more and more on trying to stimulate use in the new countries, often also developing countries. And we think this should be successful because trademarks is used by everybody. It's probably the only IP right that will be used by all countries, developing, because any business typically has a trademark, however small. And we think that smaller businesses will have growing opportunities to export their products through basically through the internet and modern technologies. We see that very clearly in China, where a huge number of very small businesses are very successful in selling their products abroad using the internet. And we think this trend will also, if it is not already manifest in many other countries, will certainly reinforce itself in many countries. So the need to protect your trademarks abroad is going to be a key thing in all countries, not just the big developed ones, a key thing in all countries. And the Madrid system is a very useful tool in that context. And this is especially for Jamaica. That's why we are so happy with Jamaica joining this system, because Jamaica, as I said previously, is there's such a brand recognition about Jamaica, and there's such brand recognition about Jamaican personalities and products. So in many ways, Jamaica is the ideal new member because of all these characteristics. And maybe offline with Debbie and Lily Claire, we can talk about maybe setting up a special program to stimulate use in the country. But so there's a huge potential there, which is illustrated also by the following fact. In 2019, we see that Jamaican trademark owners filed for protection in 29 foreign countries, 29 countries. And of those 29 countries, 20 are members of the Madrid system. So that's very important and also very useful, because basically it means you should not only be able to save money to protect your trademarks in those countries compared to the past. But what is very important, and this is perhaps the key point, the Madrid system is a legal procedural system. One has to understand how to navigate it and how to use it. And we believe that one of the main reasons why the system is not as used as much as it can be in these smaller countries is simply because the local communities, and that applies to the rights owners, but also the trademark agents and the attorneys, simply do not have enough knowledge and experience about the system to use it comfortably and extensively. And we are totally dedicated to the task of helping those local players better understand the system, be more comfortable with the system, and make the appropriate judgment about when to use the system and not to use the system. This is possibly our #1 task going forward in the Madrid registry, probably for 5 to 10 years, 10 years ahead of us. And obviously this webinar is an element, is a step in this process of greater familiarization, but we are very keen to do all sorts of I won't go into the details, but we have a whole program of activities on how we can help local communities, rights holders, and agents representatives make the system work for them as well as it can. Now, for instance, and this is my last point, in Germany, which is quite a developed, obviously, IP country, about 80% of all trademark filings abroad from German owners go through the Madrid system. 80%. It's a big percentage. Of course, all the lawyers and all the rights owners in Germany are doing well. I mean, clearly they're doing well financially. So the fact that they use the system so extensively demonstrates that it's not true that the system will damage the interests of this and that community locally. It's just a question of whether you're able to use it smartly. And of course, it's perfectly normal that in the beginning, there needs to be some time to adjust to it and to understand it. Thank you very much. I've said enough, and I yield the floor back to Lily Claire. Thank you very much, Minister, again for your presence and your very able and very elaborate introduction, very interesting introduction. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and wish you well.
Thanks, Minister. Thank you so much, David, for that. That was quite an interesting overview. And of course, we will reach out to you to host more webinars that are targeted to our agents and our attorneys so that there can be a fulsome use of the system to benefit both the legal fraternity and also those who seek to protect their trademarks. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. I think I leave it to you for the next steps in the webinar, and I wish you all a fruitful session. Please make it as interactive as possible, and I hope to be back in touch with you all, as soon as we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, David. I appreciate it.
Bye, 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 bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us.
With pleasure. Bye, bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, and now next on our program is the overview of the Madrid system, and we're going to hand over to Debbie, who is no stranger to us here at the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office and to some of our stakeholders here in Jamaica. But just to share a bit briefly about Debbie, she works in the Madrid Legal Division in the Madrid Registry in the Brands and Design sector at WIPO, which is the World Intellectual Property Organization. Her area of responsibility is the legal aspect of the Madrid system for the international registration of marks. And she provides assistance to offices, for example, the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, in their preparations for Accession to and implementation of the Madrid system. And she has been very helpful to Jamaica in this regard, and we thank her for that. And also the development of the legal framework of the Madrid system. Debbie joined WIPO in 2010 when she was appointed director of the Madrid Legal Division. She's a Norwegian national, and she has a law degree from the University of Oslo Faculty of Law in Norway. Prior to joining the World Intellectual Property Organization, she worked in the Norwegian Intellectual Property Office. And she had over 17 years there in various positions from 1993 to 2010. She was an examiner and head of the trademark department, a senior legal advisor in the legal and political affairs division. Debbie has a wealth of experience, and she is quite hands-on and quite approachable. And And as David said, we'll try to make the system as interactive with, we'll have questions and answers at the end. So please note your questions so that Debbie can address them and the other presenters. So Debbie, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lily Claire. Honorable Minister, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning to you all. It is my great pleasure to be with you today on the occasion that the protocol is now in force in Jamaica. I hear you have nice sunny weather today, and here it is raining hard and windy, so I would so much prefer to be with you in person. But at least we can interact with each other online. I will make my presentation available to Lily Claire and colleagues later so you can get it from them. Let's see. I will give you a brief overview of the Madrid system. And then there's a slight change in the program. So for those of you that have been anticipating to see Peter Baker on the screen, he will come at a later occasion, because today I will rather take you through how to file the international application using another tool, namely the Madrid Application Assistant. But let me start by sharing my screen first. I hope you all can see this.
Yes, we can see.
So let's start. So on the screen, you see a number of brands, and these are all registered under the Madrid system. And I'm sure that you recognize at least some of these. In fact, there's also one international registration here where the address of the holder is in Jamaica. And the Jamaican-owned brand is Clydesdale Estate Coffee. So this brand was registered under the Madrid system in 2008. This was before Jamaica joined, so this was filed through the Spanish office. And this international registration covers protection in the European Union, Norway, Switzerland, and the Russian Federation for coffee products. So it all begins with a mark. So if you have a mark and you have a product you want to export abroad, you need to see which option for protection of your mark is your best option. So we have three options. If you want to protect your brands abroad, you have the national route, regional route, and the international route, which is the Madrid system. We like to call the Madrid system the one-stop shop for trademark holders to obtain and maintain protection in export markets. So which of these options would be your best option would depend on where your export markets are, if they are Madrid members or not. So I will take you through the overview of how the registration process in the Madrid system works, and I will use a fictional character. So I would like to introduce Sally. Sally lives in Wonderland Valley in the French-speaking part of Canada, and she produces honey. She has registered her mark by Sally in her home country, Canada, for honey products. She now wants to export her honey abroad, and she's considering protection of her mark in China, Germany, Norway, and the US. She can protect her mark by going the national route. This means that she can file directly before the IP offices of these 4 countries. And if you have protected your marks abroad, you may be familiar with this route. By filing for protection abroad using the national route, this means that she will need to follow the national requirements in each of these countries. The first thing she would need to do would be to find a local attorney or agent to help file on her behalf in each of these countries. She will be using different local forms in the 4 local languages: Chinese, German, Norwegian, and English. And she will pay fees in 4 different local currencies. Most likely, she would need to contact a local attorney or agent in Canada to benefit from their network to locate attorneys or agents abroad. She may get protection in the various countries, but these will all be independent registrations with different numbers and different renewal dates that she would need to manage and keep track of. If she later would like to record a change, for example, in her business address, she would need to request this before each of the offices concerned, through her local agents, following the domestic processes, using forms, paying fees, and so on. And similarly, after 10 years' time, she would need to renew her registrations. This would also have to be done before each of those offices concerned through her local agents. So obtaining protection in various countries, going the national route, and later maintaining these rights are parallel processes. It is quite doable, but it could get complicated and expensive. The Madrid system is another option for protecting marks abroad. It is not mandatory to use Madrid. It's simply just another option for protection of marks abroad. For Sally to use the Madrid system, she would need to have a connection with a Madrid member. Such connection would be being a national of, being domiciled in, or have a place of business in a member. Sally meets these requirements of a connection as Canada is a member and she's a national of Canada. She's also domiciled and have her business there. But one connection would be sufficient. The other requirement is that she needs to have a basic mark with the office of her member. So Sally has already registered her mark with the Canadian IP office, CIPO, so she also meets this requirement. And what makes the Madrid system a good option for Sally is that all the countries she wants her mark protected in are also members of the Madrid system. So for her to use the Madrid system, she would file one international application through her local IP office in Canada, and this will be her office of origin. There is no automatic protection of her mark in the Madrid system just because Canada is a member. Sally has to actively seek protection by filling out the international application form and send this to CIPO, her office of origin. The Madrid system has 3 languages, English, French, and Spanish. She files the international application in French, and she specifies which countries she's seeking protection in. So she designates China, Germany, Norway, and the US. She pays the relevant Madrid fees in one currency, which is Swiss francs, directly to WIPO. So such centralized filing is a key feature of the Madrid system. There is no requirement to use a local attorney or agent at the time of filing, and no requirement to translate listed goods and services into different languages. While she does not need to have or to file through an attorney or agent, it could make sense for her to consult with a Canadian agent who really knows the Madrid system, just to make sure that she has prepared the application as well as possible, so she can avoid future problems with designated members. So while this could be an added cost initially, it could lead to substantial savings later. When CIPO, her office of origin, receives the international application, they will compare the particulars of the application with the particulars of the basic mark. This means making sure that it concerns the same holder, the same mark, and that the list of goods and services in the international application is covered by the scope of the basic mark. And where the office of origin finds that these particulars correspond, they will certify the application and send this to WIPO. WIPO will examine for formalities only. WIPO does not decide whether the mark can be protected or not in specific countries. Once WIPO has received all the required information in the international application, WIPO will ensure translation of the application into the 2 other languages and register the mark. WIPO will publish the international registration in the official gazette and send a certificate for the registration to Sally. Sally has now an international registration, which may cover possible protection in multiple countries: China, Germany, Norway, and the US. She has 1 international registration number and 1 date for renewal to keep track of. WIPO will notify the offices of the members she has designated. And at this stage, Sally doesn't know if the mark will be fully protected in these countries, as these offices will now begin their examination of the international registration in line with their domestic trademark legislation and practice to see if they can grant protection to the mark. So the offices of the designated members will examine the mark and they will notify Sally of their decision within a given time limit. So members of the Madrid system have informed WIPO whether they have 12 or 18 months time limit to issue a refusal. And this information is published on the WIPO website. So Sally would know within which time limit to expect a first decision from the different offices. In case one office cannot grant protection, the office has to notify Sally through WIPO of a provisional refusal. This is the first office action. And if one office refuses protection, that refusal would not have any impact on the possible decisions by the other offices. And Sally would still be able to contest that provisional refusal before that office concerned, using all the applicable means set out in the relevant national legislation. This could be requesting review before the registrar or file an appeal to the boards of appeal or to the courts. And it is only where she would like to contest our refusal that she may be required to find a local attorney or agent to help her before that country concerned. Where the officers can grant protection, her rights in these countries under the Madrid system would be the same as if she had filed directly with those offices and obtained a registration there. And if Sally in the future would like to call a change of her business address, or in 10 years' time renew her international registration, she will handle these matters directly before WIPO. She will use the relevant online forms on WIPO's website and pay the fees. WIPO will record the change or the renewal, and this will have effect in all the countries covered by the international registration. So this is another useful feature of the Madrid system, and this is called the centralized management of rights. So comparing this process of the Madrid system with the one for the national route, you can see that this one is much more streamlined with centralized filing and management of rights, which makes it quite easy for Sally to later manage and maintain her portfolio of rights. If Sally later decides to export to further countries, she can add more Madrid members on to her existing international registration, still keeping only one registration to manage and maintain and only one renewal date to keep track of. And this feature is called subsequent designation. And this is especially beneficial for SMEs because it would allow them to start small, designating 2 or 3 members. And as their business prospers and grows and they want to export to more countries, they can simply add these new export markets onto the existing international registration. So while the date of protection in these new markets will be from the date of the subsequent designation, it will still allow for centralized management. So looking at some of the features and benefits, the Madrid system is a closed system, which means you have to have a connection with a member entitlement to use the system. And that could be nationality, domicile, or have a real and effective industrial or commercial establishment, namely a place of business. Then the trademark owner needs to have a basic mark, which is the mark applied for or registered with the office where they have the connection. And that office is called the office of origin. So many of you can use the Madrid system now because you will have a connection with Jamaica, either due to nationality, to domicile, or you have a place of business here. And then you need to have a basic mark filed with or registered with JIPO. And JIPO will be your office of origin through which you will file the international application. So as you know now, centralized filing means that you file an international application in one language, paying fees in one currency, you designate your export markets, and this international application is the equivalent of a bundle of national applications. So this will effectively save you time and money. Centralized management is easy. You can use online forms and record changes and renew your registration directly with WIPO. And WIPO will inform all the designated members of the changes. So you can record changes to the name and address of the holder, changes in ownership, you can record limitations of goods and services, etc. You can designate all the members you would like, except the office of origin. But there's no need for that because you already have the basic mark there. You know now that you can add more designations onto your existing international registration, thereby expanding the geographical protection. You can also tailor the list of goods and services for the different export markets, and I will come back to this a little later in the presentation. The designated members will have a fixed time limit within which they will need to make their decision on the scope of protection. And if they need to refuse, they will have to notify you. So there's an expectation of within which time you would hear something from the office. The offices of the designated members will make their decision on the scope of protection in accordance with the domestic legislation and practice. It is important to use the Madrid system only when you have a solid foundation, which means that you should wait until you have a national registration. And I'm saying this because we have something called the dependency principle, where the international registration will be depending on the fate of the basic mark for 5 years. So if the basic mark ceases to have effect in this 5-year period, the office of origin will inform WIPO, and then WIPO will cancel the international registration to the same extent. You can avoid this to happen if you use a registered mark as the basic mark, because then you will have a pretty good idea that you have the exclusive rights. But still, if your basic mark for some reason would cease to have effect and your international registration will be cancelled, there is a procedure for you to transform your international registration into national rights to ensure continued protection. Replacement is another very Madrid-specific procedure. And this basically means that where you designate a country where you have a prior national right, you can benefit from the date of the earlier right in that country. And this can be reflected in the international register, so you can later let go of the prior right if you wish to, and thereby consolidate your portfolio under the Madrid system. So to talk about fees, so to give you an idea of the costs and the fees applicable in the Madrid system, let's look at this example. Coming back to Sally. So with the Madrid system, Sally would pay a basic fee to WIPO. This would be 903 Swiss francs because her mark was in color. And then she would need to pay fees for designating the 4 countries, the 4 members versus seeking protection. So in this particular case, Sally would pay 2,500 Swiss francs roughly. And she would pay these fees upfront in Swiss francs. So let's try to compare with what she would have to pay if she would have used the national route for the same 4 countries. She would, of course, not pay a basic fee to WIPO, but she would need to pay the official fees for the 4 countries, and these would be at least the same amount as set out in the Madrid system. But in addition, there are costs for using the national route that would not be applicable in the Madrid system. So she will have to pay for translation of her details into Chinese, German, Norwegian, and English. And she will need to pay for 4 local attorneys or agents to file on her behalf in these 4 offices of the members. And these additional fees, translation and attorney fees, would be far higher than the basic fee to WIPO. So this is the current geographical coverage of the Madrid system. This is where we stand today. We have some brand new information for you. We have 2 countries that deposited instrument of accession this week. So we're now up to 112 members, covering 128 countries. So you can see from the list that we have had some really good accessions in the past few years with Brazil, Canada, and Malaysia in 2019. We had Trinidad and Tobago last year with Pakistan and United Arab Emirates. Last year, the UK also extended the application to Guernsey and Gibraltar. And this year we have Jamaica as a brand new member. And we have Chile, and the protocol will enter into force in Chile on July 4. And yesterday, Cape Verde deposited the instrument of accession, and the protocol will be effective as of July 6. So many things are happening now in the Madrid system. So this is what the new map looks like. And all the countries marked in red means that they're members. So if you have export interests in any of the countries marked in red, this means that Madrid might be a very good option for you to use. We are also working with many countries, assisting them in the preparations for a future accession. And the countries on this list have now reached advanced stages of the preparations. And we hope that at least some of them might be able to join within this year or next year. So we're working with Mauritius and South Africa in the African region. We are waiting for Saudi Arabia to join. In Asia, we're working with Bangladesh, Papua New Guinea, and Sri Lanka. There's still one European country that has not yet acceded, and that is Malta. But we expect that Malta will be the next member to join Madrid. And in your region, in Latin America and Caribbean region, we are working with Belize. So things might be changing in the map in the near future as well. To give you an idea of the size of the use of the Madrid system. So in 2021, we had a record year. We received more than 73,000 international applications, and this was about a 14% increase compared to 2020. So the number 1 filer we have is L'Oréal from France, and they filed 171 applications. So when you hear that number, you will understand that the Madrid system is actually built of many companies, many trademark holders filing only 1 or 2 applications. So when we look at the applications we have received and we look at the address of the applicant, we see that most of the applicants come from the US, followed by Germany, China, France, and the UK. So this is the filing origin. If we look at the other side of the coin, and we look at which members do they designate, we see that the most designated members of last year were the UK. And this is a direct result of Brexit, followed by the European Union, the US, China, Canada, Japan, Australia, etc. Now that you know a bit more about how the Madrid system works, and that it might be very useful for you when you're considering protecting your marks outside Jamaica, and especially when you see that your export markets are among our members. So you may wonder, how can you take advantage of the Madrid system? How can you secure protection filling out the international application form? So this is where the change in the program comes in. So I will also have the next slot and not Peter Baker. And I will take you through how you can file the international application. I will not take you through field by field of the application form, but I will try to give you some tips and advice and highlight what information you have to provide and what information you should provide to avoid future problems. Before I take you through the application form, I would like to draw your attention to how you can prepare for the filing. There are some general considerations you should make prior to start filling out the form. First thing is, make sure you have entitlement, whether that is nationality, domicile, or where you have a place of business. It may be Jamaica, or you may be connected to more than one member. And if that is the case, you will need to choose which connection or entitlement to use. So when you have sorted out your connection, you will also need to have a basic mark with the office of origin. So look at the basic mark. This could be 1 or more applications or registrations. It could be new registrations or really old ones. The international registration will be depending on the fate of the basic mark for 5 years. So as I just mentioned, it is better to wait using Madrid until you have a registration, because then you would have a solid foundation to build your international application on. And there is less risk of bad things happening to your basic mark, which could affect your international registration. So if you already have a national mark with JIPO, look at this. Is this the mark you want to go abroad with? In case you would like to modernize an older mark, you may need to file a new mark with JIPO. Does the basic mark cover all the relevant goods and services you would like your mark protected for abroad? You can always be more narrow concerning the goods and services in the international application, but you can never be broader. So look at the scope you have to see if you need to extend this before you start using Madrid. Will you use the mark in the same way in all the countries of interest? And look at the countries of interest. How many do you have now? How many will you have in the future? Should you start small and then later expand to further members? Would you need to combine using an international application designating those that are Madrid members, and perhaps also have national applications for those that are not yet members? We have lots of useful information and e-services on our website. So make sure you check this out as part of your preparations. So I mentioned that there's no requirement to have a local attorney at the time of filing. But if you do not have Madrid-specific knowledge yourself, it could be well worth the investment of contacting an attorney or agent who has such expert knowledge to get help with the preparation of your international application. Because there are many things you can do in the application form that could prevent future problems with some of the designated members and thereby avoid or reduce future costs. So this is an overview of the information and e-tools we have on the website, and my colleague Benoit will take you through this in more details later today. These tools are grouped according to the phase that you may be in. Search before filing, you can file, and after filing you can monitor and manage your rights. You can do your clearance searches using the Global Brands database for the many national trademark collections that are included in that database. And taking a look at the Global Brand database could be useful even if you're not filing through Madrid, but using the national route to do your clearance searches. When you're ready to file, you can compile the list of goods and services using the Madrid Goods and Services Manager. And I will come back to more on this a little later. You can check out the procedures in the different members in the member profile database, just to make sure that the ones you want to designate, they can accept your typo mark. You can get information on what time limits they have and what procedures they have. And of course, you can use the fee calculator to estimate the fees you need to pay. So let's assume that you now have made all your necessary preparations and now you're ready to tackle the international application form. If your office of origin has their own online form or has WIPO's Madrid e-filing system, you will need to use that. JIPO is working with WIPO to provide for Madrid e-filing. But until that is in place, which should happen in the future, until that is in place, you will have to use the Madrid application assistant. But once you have Madrid e-filing in JIPO, we will come back and organize a more detailed demonstration of how that would work. And then that would be Peter Baker to make that demonstration. So for now, we're going to focus on the Madrid application assistant. You will find a link to this on our website. And if you would like to learn more about what information would be useful to include in the application form, you can also find this in the filing notes that are published on the website. So the Madrid Application Assistant, MAA, is the electronic version of the MM2 form that you must use to file your international application. This is a very simple process. It enables faster completion following a step-by-step process. The data is validated because we have integrated the Madrid Goods and Services Manager and the fee calculator. To get started, you would need to have a personal WIPO account, but this is easy to do and Benoit will give you more information about this later. So you choose your office of origin, and Jamaica is already in the system. Then you can get started. Start completing the form. So this is just to give you an idea of what it looks like. So here you can see the fields set out on the left-hand side. So this column will help you monitor the steps of the process of completing the form. So each step will be marked when successfully completed. And then you cannot skip a step. You have to go through one by one. So you are guided to share all the information necessary for the correct completion of the form. And this greatly reduces the risk of making mistakes and causing irregularities and delays. So the setup here looks a little bit different than the old-fashioned MM2 PDF form, but it contains the same information. It's just in a different order. So in the application form, some information is mandatory, which means that you have to provide this. Otherwise, WIPO will issue an irregularity letter, and WIPO will not record your registration. So using the Madrid application assistant it's good because you cannot complete the form without giving this information. So you must, of course, give the name and address of the applicant, including the email address. This is now a mandatory requirement. And the name and address would have to be the same as in the basic mark. You would have to claim entitlement with a member. So this would be Jamaica for many of you. You'll have to provide the basic mark details. You can have more than one basic mark, provided they are the same, but for different goods and services. You will have to provide a representation of the mark, and this also has to be the same as the basic mark. If your mark is in non-Latin characters, you will have to provide a transliteration, and this is basically stating the phonetics of the mark, what it sounds like. You will have to indicate the type of mark, and this also has to be the same as the basic mark. So if you have a three-dimensional basic mark, it has to be a three-dimensional mark also in the international application. You will have to list the goods and services that you want your mark protected for. And the list here has to be covered by the scope of what you have in the basic mark. And I will also come back to this. You will have to designate at least one member, but it can never be the country of the origin. But you have your basic mark there, so there's no need. If you want to designate the US, you have to add an additional form, which is the MM18, and this is the form for your intention to use the mark in the US. This is mandatory for designations of the US. And of course, fees are mandatory, as well as submitting the form to the office of origin. Before submitting the form to the office of origin, there is also further information that you can provide in the form. This is optional information, which means that you are not required to, because WIPO can record the registration even if some of that information is missing. However, I would advise that you provide as much information as you can, because some members require this. And if this is missing, they will issue a provisional refusal. Then you will need to appoint a local attorney to provide this. So it's cheaper and quicker to provide it from the start. So provide as much information you can to prevent future problems. You can indicate your address of correspondence. This could be useful if you represent a larger company, where you, for example, want a specific unit in the company to handle trademark matters, for example, the legal unit. And this legal unit may be in a different location than the main office. I would advise you to indicate nationality for natural persons, or the legal nature for legal entities. And especially if you designate the US, because they will require this. And if they don't see this, they will issue a refusal. You can appoint a representative to act on your behalf before WIPO. This is not required, but if you do so, you will need to provide the contact details of that representative, including the email address. To appoint a representative to act on your behalf before the offices of designated members, that is a matter to address directly before those officers concerned. You can also add various claims. You can claim priority if the basic mark is less than 6 months old. You can claim color if the basic mark also is in color. And this is the case even if your office of origin do not use color claim, you can still include that in the international application. You can claim seniority for older national rights in one or more EU member states. And if you do so, you can benefit from the earlier date of protection in those countries. So this feature has some similarities with replacement. You can provide a translation of the mark into English, French, or Spanish, or all. And this might be quite useful for you to do because you cannot provide this information later. And since some members will require to see a translation, and if they don't see this, they will issue a refusal. So again, cheaper and quicker to just provide it from the start. And if your mark cannot be translated, you can declare that the mark has no meaning, just also to avoid that officers will require to see a translation. If your mark is not in standard characters or not a word mark, you can provide a description of the mark. And some officers will require this. And again, the US is one of them. So you can describe what the mark looks like and the color combinations if that's the case. You can also provide a disclaimer of one or more elements of the mark. This is up to you to decide. Disregarding if your basic mark has a disclaimer, you don't need to provide a disclaimer here. But if you provide a disclaimer here, note that this will apply to all the members. So an option to provide it here would be to wait and see to see if some members will ask for this. But then if they will ask for this, they will do so in the form of a provisional refusal, and then you will have to appoint a local attorney to address that. You can include a limitation of the goods and services for specific members. And this can be useful if you know that a specific member you want to designate, if they have a very strict classification practice, or if you will not be exporting all your products to all the members. And if you designate the European Union, you would need to provide the second language. And this is for further processing in the EU. But then again, if you don't provide this, WIPO will still record the registration, but the EU will issue a refusal. So better to give as much information as you can from the start. So I wanted to give you a little bit more information on the goods and services. So the list in the international application must be within the scope of the basic mark. You should group these in the appropriate classes of the NIS classification using the current edition and version of NIS. So this list can be the same scope as the basic mark, or it can be more narrow, but it can never be broader. I would advise you to look at the Madrid Goods and Services Manager to compile the list of terms. This tool has terms in 22 languages. It has more than 128,000 terms in English. These terms are all pre-approved by WIPO. So it means that if you use these, there will be no problems in WIPO with the recording of the registration. This tool also has a very useful feature called the check acceptance feature. This means that some members have indicated terms they cannot accept. So if you see that your desired terms are among terms that they cannot accept, you can avoid using these terms or rephrase them to prevent to receive provisional refusals later on from those members. I wanted to give you an example. So this is an example from the check acceptance feature in the Madrid Goods and Services Manager. So if you look at the terms on the right side, you see knives, parts of machines, saw blades, sifting installations, etc. So these are the terms that we proposed here. These terms are all marked in green, so this means that they are approved by WIPO. Look at the other side, my left side, you see country codes. So these are the members that were proposed designated here. And you see that for knives, you see that there are 2 country codes in red, Japan and the US. And when they're marked in red, it means that they cannot accept them. So if you would go on with knives as part of your list of goods and services for designations of Japan and the US, you will get a refusal. So if you use this tool as part of your preparations, you can try to take out and rephrase those terms that are not acceptable to possibly avoid refusals later on. So this is quite useful. Some members have specific requirements for which you need to provide more information. That information could either be included in the application form itself, or you'll have to use separate forms and attach these. So I already talked about some of them. So you know, for the EU, you will have to provide a second language. Do that directly in the form. So you will be given the option to indicate English, French, Spanish, German, or Italian. But it cannot be the same as the language you fill in the international application with. So if you will fill out in English through WIPO, you will have to choose between French, German, Italian, or Spanish. You can claim seniority if you have an older right in any of the EU member states, and you will have to attach an MM17 form. Quite a number of our members have a requirement of intent to use. So for designating the US, you will have to attach the MM18 form, and you can do that in the application assistant. For other members that also require an intent to use, you will actually make the statement of intent to use by the mere designation of these members in the form. So by ticking the boxes of, for example, Brunei, Guernsey, India, Ireland, Lesotho, New Zealand, Singapore, Trinidad and Tobago, etc., you will have declared your intent to use the mark in commerce in those countries. Some members require the fees to be paid in 2 parts. It concerns Brazil, Cuba, and Japan. This means that one part will be paid when designating them in the international application, and the second part will be paid once the office is ready to grant protection. They will inform you through WIPO and say, now please pay the second part fee. In the application assistant, you will also find information on specific geographical coverage of a specific designation. This could be, if you look at the UK, it will say that it covers England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, the British Overseas Territory of the Falkland Islands and Gibraltar, as well as British Crown dependencies of the Isle of Man and Jersey. And you will see that Benelux will cover Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg, and so on. This is the setup of the fees payable in the Madrid system. Fees are mandatory, which means that we will not record your international registration unless we have received payment of the fees. If we receive your application and no fees have been paid, we will issue an irregularity and give you a time limit to do so, to pay the fees. Some offices on origin will require a small administrative fee for the work they do with the international application. And such fee is payable directly to the office concerned in local currencies. The other fees for using Madrid, the basic fee and the fees for the designated members, will be payable directly to WIPO. Some fees follow the standard fees regime, which means it costs 100 Swiss francs. Other countries, other members have declared individual fees, and these could all be different. So make sure you use the fee calculator to estimate the fees to be paid. And this is now integrated in the Madrid application assistant, so it's quite easy for you to use this. So the Madrid application assistant has a fee calculation page. And this page will reflect the fee details of each of the designated members. And this is for fee information purposes only. And if you are an attorney or agent, you can actually print this out and send this to your client if you want to. We have information on the payments. So there is no direct payment of the fees at this stage. Fees will be payable after certification of the international application by the office of origin and at the time it is sent to WIPO. So the amount shown here is indicative and calculated on the basis of information provided in the form at the time of completion. So when WIPO receives the application form from the office of origin, we will send you an email of acknowledgement of receipt. And in that email, we will give you a link to our payment portal so that you can pay the fees referring to the WIPO reference number, which is set out in the email. And if you would pay the fees upon the acknowledgement email and not wait for an irregularity letter from WIPO, this will speed up the process and avoid delays. And once you have completed the form, you will have a summary. This is made available in PDF format. And this same document can be sent to your office of origin certification. So this is what you can send to JIPO. So you have now completed your application. I wanted to give you just a little bit of information towards the end on, you have done your bit. What happens next? So we're in stage 1, the first stage. You have sent the application to the office of origin. They will now compare the particulars of the application with the particulars of the basic mark. And where they see that these correspond, they match, they will certify and send this to WIPO. It is important that the office transmit the application to WIPO within 2 months from the date of receipt, because in that case, the date of receipt in the office of origin will be the date of the international registration. And the date of the international registration is extremely important because this is what will be considered as the filing date in the designated members. Stage 2 concerns the examination by WIPO. If there would be any issues with the application, WIPO will send an irregularity letter to both the office of origin and to the applicant. They will inform of what is the problem, how can you fix this, which of you will have to fix it because some issues have to be sorted out by the office only, and the time limit. So you'll have 3 months. Where everything is in order, WIPO will record international registration, publish this in the Gazette, and send a certificate to the holder and inform the members that you have designated. And you know that the designated members will then have 12 or 18 months to conduct their examination and give you their decision of the scope of protection. So this is an example of the certificate from WIPO on the international registration. So this shows the date of the international registration, which is the date the office of origin received the application. And here it is August 12, 2021. It states when renewal is due, so 10 years from the date of international registration. So we're looking at August 12, 2031. And it shows the date of notification from WIPO to the designated members. So this is November 4, 2021. And this date is the starting date of the time limit of 12 or 18 months that the members have to make their substantive examination and make the decision on the scope of protection. So if you want to know more about the role of the office or the designated member, so they will just follow the domestic legislation. They will look at Madrid designation in the same way as they do for the national application. The only change is that they don't have to check for formalities because WIPO have covered that. So they can go directly into the substance. So they can make a number of decisions in the Madrid legal framework. They can make a refusal if they can't grant protection. If they can grant protection, they will issue a statement to grant protection. You should know that if you will receive a provisional refusal, you can contest this, and then the office will follow up with a final decision. So this is just a brief overview of what happens later, but the focus today was to show you how the Madrid system works, and also to show you how you can take advantage by filling out the international application form. So with these words, I have now reached the end of my presentation, and I will be available for the Q&A session towards the end, but I wish you all the best in using the Madrid system.
Thank you so much, Debbie, for that really extensive presentation. There are no more questions in the chat, but as you indicated, we will take the questions at the end to allow the presenters to all share, because some of the questions may be answered as we continue with the presentation. So thank you so much for your presentation. We're now going to hear from Mr. Peter Baker, who is the Senior Project Manager, Business Application Architecture System at the Madrid Information Systems Division in the Madrid Registry, Brands and Design sector. And he will be addressing the topic, which Debbie alluded to in her presentation, how to file the international application using Madrid e-filing. You're welcome.
Thank you, Lily Claire. Actually, I would love to do this right now, but we're not quite there.
Okay.
And so this has been postponed. Hopefully not long. Good indeed. So for now, because Debbie did talk through it, and so not to muddy the waters too much, I'm going to leave the audience with what Debbie has discussed, and hope to see everybody very shortly, and thank everybody for their attention and participation, and turn it over to my colleague, Benoit. And he's going to pick up from what Debbie discussed and then elaborate on some of the additional e-services that the Madrid system offers. So look, thank you for the lovely introduction. And I wish we could jump straight into Madrid e-filing, but not quite yet. Soon, I promise. Okay.
So we look forward to having you back when we are fully on board and you'll be able to take us through that process.
Wonderful. I'm looking forward to it too. Thank you. Okay, so I give it over to my dear colleague, Benoit. Thank you, Benoit.
Benoit, your turn.
So, good afternoon, everyone. Can you see me? Can you hear me? If you have any issue hearing me, just let me know or drop a message in the chat.
Okay, we can see and we can hear you, Benoit. So
excellent. So I will follow up. I'm very pleased to be here with you this morning or this afternoon, and to continue this presentation or this training session on the Madrid online resources and services. So I would like to have an interactive session. So we have 30 minutes together. Please feel free to interrupt me with any question you may have. You can type your question in the chat, or you can just be clear. You can just moderate and stop me in my speech and ask me any question you may have. But what I'm going to do, if you are fine with it, I'm going first to talk about the various resources and online services we have using our web page as a reference. And then I will go through each online services, and I will conclude with an overview of the public education resources we have developed for you, user of the Madrid system. So to do so, I will share my screen. So now you should all see my screen, and you should see the Madrid homepage. So on this Madrid homepage, the architecture of our website is as follows. On the top of the homepage, you have an introduction of the Madrid system. So we talk about the key benefit of the system, which, as you know, convenient, cost-effective, and provide a global reach. We talk about how much does it cost, who can use the Madrid system. We have our news section, when you can keep up to date about the Madrid system. And I see this opportunity to advise you to encourage all our participants to sign up to our Madrid newsletters, email newsletter alert system. You can sign up here and you provide an email, and then you will receive an email as soon as each time there is a development under the Madrid system. So this is a new section. And if you scroll down here, we have gathered, grouped all the online services according to the life cycle of the trademark. So Debbie was mentioning a couple of them when presenting how to complete the international application. And I will go into more details in a couple of minutes. Then if you continue, we have here our how-to resources, our public education materials, and our how-to pages. But let's go back to the online services. So first of all, we have for the search stage, and for the search stage, which is here, before filing your application, so you would like to do a search to identify if there is already identical or similar trademark in your target market. And for this, we have a tool that we call the Global Brand Database. So the Global Brand Database, to access it, like any other online services, you will go through what we call the WIPO IP portal. So to go to the IP portal, you just go on the WIPO website, which is here. So you put wipo.in.portal, wipo.in, sorry. And then on the top here, you have IP portal. You click here, and you will open this page, and you will access to the WIPO IP portal. And the WIPO IP portal is a platform when you can access all the online services provided by WIPO. That means it's not only for trademark and the Madrid system, which are here, but it's also for patents, for design, for geographical indication, and also for other services such as arbitration, etc. So it's here we provide solution for any type of work related to IP. So on this portal, to make the most of the portal, we encourage you to create a WIPO account, because on most of the in order to perform a transaction under the Madrid system, you need to be logged in order to have a secured experience using our online application. And to create a WIPO account, if you don't have one yet, you just go here on the button, create a WIPO account. You will open a page, a form to create a WIPO account. And it's very easy. You just need to provide your name, last name, company, etc., and provide an email address. This email address must be an individual email because it's a WIPO account for you as an individual and not for your company. And you just submit this form, choose a password, and you click create an account, and then you will receive an email in your mailbox with confirming the creation of your account, and you will be able to log in. So let's log in to the WIPO portal. So to log in, you click here on login, and you will access what we call the dashboard. So this is my dashboard under my IP portal. On the dashboard, you have a series of what we call widgets that you can tailor to your needs. So you can see I have the world clock, I have the news, and I have also some widget for the online services. But let's go back to the search phase and the services we have for the search phase. So I will go in my menu, I will go under Trademark. I want to perform an action under search. So I will click on search. And here I will see I have as a tool the global brand database, which allow me to search in trademark collection in more than 70 countries and 70 trademark records. So I will click here and it will open my the application, the global brand database. To make it faster, I have created some screenshots because I don't want to take too much of your time. So with a global brand database, as I say, you can search in more than 70 international collections, and you can search with different filter and criteria. So you can search by name, by number, by class of goods and services, by origin, by registration, by application year, etc. And you can also search by image. So searching by image, let's take an example. I choose here an image, which is a bird, a night bird. I mean, it looks like a night bird. That's my understanding. And to search by image, I will upload this image on the global brand database. And then I will have the option to pick a strategy. So on this screen, I pick the strategy to search by shape. And as a result, I will have all the images having similar shape than the image I have chosen to perform my search. So that means the global brand database, we perform a search, analyzing and looking for images which have solid circle, and line connecting this circle. You can see the result here. Which is different is we can also do a search by concept. So I will go back to the screen here. So I will do the search again with you. So I will check for my eyes. I will click it here, and then I'm going to use. Sorry, I should have only one. So I can edit my drawing. Okay. And I can also search by concept. So here, I'm not going to search by shape or by color, but by concept. So that means I'm going to do an AI, artificial intelligence powered search when the artificial intelligence gonna look at this image and gonna look for similar concept. So I select by concept, I put the same criteria, and I click on filter, and the search is running and is looking for similar concepts in the international record. So it may take a while because there is a lot of records and a lot of images. And while I'm doing so, I will try to show you. Okay, normally it should have find the result is not going through. So I will go back to the online services. So we'll get back to this one later on. So let's go back to my online services. So I have performed my search successfully for my global brand database. Now I have a series of tools available for preparing my application. So you have the international application simulator when you can calculate, you can simulate your application. You have the Madrid application assistance, which was mentioned by Debbie when preparing your application. And this is currently available for you as applicant in Jamaica. You have the Madrid member profile, which allow you to check the practices of IP offices in Madrid system members. So with the Madrid member profile, you can simply select the member you are interested in. So you are filling your application, or you're doing a subsequent designation, and you're using Office of Origin in Jamaica, and you would like to know what is the current practice and procedures in the USA, in United Kingdom, and maybe EU IPO, for instance, and Antigua and Barbuda, which is in the region. You click next. Then you have the opportunity to refine your search by type of information. So if I'm doing an application here and I want to designate this contracting party, so you want to know more about the procedures applicable as designated contracting party. So you click here. Maybe I want to know if there is any specific requirement for designation of these contracting parties. So I just select that. Then I click next. And I see here, there is a specific requirement for Antigua and Barbuda. You need to have an intention to use. For the EU, there is an indication of the second language, as Debbie mentioned it. And for the UK, there is intention to use in some situation, indication of the legal nature, etc. And for the USA, there is intention to use, and there is even a special form, which is a form MM18. So thanks to this tool, I can do my due diligence and get acquainted with all the information and specificities of the contracting party I'm going to designate in my international application or in my subsequent designation, and take the necessary action. Another tool which is available for you for preparing your application or your subsequent designation is the Madrid Goods and Services Manager, which was mentioned by Debbie, when you could compile, verify, and also translate your list of goods and services. Then I have done my application. I would like to track the status of the application. For this, we have the Madrid Monitor. So with Madrid Monitor, again, I have some screenshots for that to show you. So with Madrid Monitor, you can check the status. I mean, you can search the register. So you can search by international registration number. You can search by trademark, or you can do more sophisticated search by active, by trademark holder, trademark representative, office of origin, etc. Goods and services. And you can access the WIPO Gazette. And with Madrid Monitor, you can also check the status of your registration of your specific transaction. That's what we call the real-time status. So I'm opening Madrid Monitor for this demonstration. I'm accessing the interface. So as I was telling you, you have the different search option and you have the real-time search. So I select real-time search. I put in, for instance, an international registration number. If it's still an application, I will put my WIPO reference number or my basic application, basic registration number. And I can see for this specific registration of this specific reference, all the transactions listed in the international register with the relevant WIPO reference number, the inscription date, the notification date, the reference in the Gazette, if applicable, and with the office of the contracting party concerned. That means if you do a subsequent designation, if you do an international application, you can see the status, the refusal, the grant of protection for the different contracting party, and other information. So keep in mind, remember that Madrid Monitor is to search the international register and is also to track the status of your request, of your transaction, using the real-time search. Let's continue our discovery of the online services. So we have Madrid Monitor, and then when I have my international registration, I want to manage my registration. And for this, there is a series of operation transactions I can do. And at WIPO, we try to digitalize all this experience. And in the last couple of years, we have developed more and more online applications to allow you to perform this transaction online through our IP portal. So currently, you could now perform subsequent designation online. So if you want to expand the scope of the protection, again, you go on our online application dedicated for this. You enter your international registration number. The system will retrieve the information automatically, and then you will be able to perform the transaction as it used to be on the paper or PDF form. So in this case, I want to do a subsequent designation, so I will have a step-by-step process. The first step will be to choose the contracting party I would like to designate. Second step, the list of goods and services. Then I will have a fee calculation. I will be able to pay my fees using a current account or a credit card. And then I validate my process, my request, and it will go directly in the system and received by WIPO. Another transaction you can now perform online is the limitation of the goods and services. If you want to restrict all the goods and services for some of the contracting party, you can also do what we call a renunciation. And you can also manage as an holder, the details of your international registration, or as a representative, you can manage the appointment of a representative, the cancellation of a representative, or just change the name, the contact detail, and the email. You can also renew online your international registration here. And you can, of course, calculate the fees for any transaction using the Madrid system fee calculator. And for the transactions which are not yet digitalized, available online, you will be able to access what we call the Madrid system forms, so with the forms starting with MM and a number, and you will be able to select the form available for the transaction which is not yet available online, and to complete it and to submit it through Contract Madrid. So this will be for transaction such as request for continued processing, for request for correction, for request for merger, and all these transactions are currently under development at WIPO, and our goal is to provide you with a full and comprehensive digital experience to perform your transaction under the Madrid system, from filing to management and renewal of your international registration. But let's go back to the IP portal. So I show you the services available to search before filing, the global brand database. Under File and Manage, I show you our services. So we have the Madrid application assistant to complete your application, the Madrid member profile to learn about the practices and procedures applicable in the IP offices you want to designate or you want to use as office of origin, the Madrid Goods and Services Manager to classify, compile, and check acceptance and translate your list of goods and services, Madrid Monitor to search and to track the status, a set of online application to perform various management operation under the Madrid system. And also, if you have a portfolio, if you have several international trademark registration, we have a tool named the Madrid Portfolio Manager, which gives you access to all your to your portfolio, and you will be able to access the documents linked to this registration in a secure manner under this Madrid Portfolio Manager. I see we may have a question in the Q&A. Okay, so yes, I believe we will send you the recording of the webinar. Do you have any question at this stage? No question? Should I continue? So if there is no question, I will continue my presentation. And I will talk about, so I will go back to the Madrid homepage. And I will show you or maybe I will show you what I wanted to highlight as well. When you're under the IP portal and when you're using one of the Madrid online services, if you need assistance or guidance, in the nav bar on the upper part, you have a help menu. You click here, and here you will always have a how-to section explaining how to use this application. You will have the opportunity also to go back to our Madrid website. And if you need more assistance, you will have the opportunity to contact us, to send us an online request, or to also to have a phone number to call us, to call our customer service. And this help section is available in any Madrid application. So you should, we encourage you to make use of it. But let's go back to the Madrid homepage. So I have introduced you to the various online services available here. And now I would like to show you some of our Madrid system education activities and materials. So if you want to learn more about the Madrid system, to learn more about the transaction, we have developed how-to pages. So these how-to pages will guide you from filing to monitor and manage your trademark registration. And we have explained in a clear and easy to understand language all the different transactions under the Madrid system. And we will provide you with a link to perform the transaction. So let's say you are how to manage your registration, you want to do a limitation. For the limitation, you will have the link to the online application under the IP portal. And we will also, you will also have access to a video tutorial, which will explain you the basics of this transaction and how to perform it online or using the form which was available before we digitalized this transaction. And we always encourage you to submit your request online and try to make use of this online application instead of submitting form in paper or in PDF. So this is what we call our how-to pages. Another resources, training, educational resources we have developed for you are the public webinar. So we run public webinar, a Madrid public webinar program on a monthly basis. Here in this section, you can see all the upcoming webinars. We have this program available in 7 languages. And you can see a program, a webinar which could be of interest. That's the Madrid system for newcomer, which is an introduction to the Madrid system, which will be held on April 27. The registration is free, just click on the button, you register. And if you have not time to register or to attend the webinar, or if you'd like to access past webinar, we have created a library of our past webinar that you can access on replay in all the languages. And you will find here all our webinars. So in this page, they are in English, French, and Spanish, and they are organized by category. So if you want to webinar to introduce yourself to the Madrid system, you will have access here. To learn about the transaction, so you want to know how to pay, you want to know how to understand the classification of the goods and services and the Madrid Goods and Services Manager, you want to know how to perform a subsequent designation. We have all this webinar available on replay. You just need to click on it and you can access the video recording, and you can also access the PowerPoint presentation which was developed for this webinar. Another interesting training material we have developed and which is currently available for you, new user of the system. We have created a distance learning course, what we call specialized distance learning course on the Madrid system, which is open for registration. So it's a tutored course, a 7 weeks course, which is also free of charge. And the registration are still open. They will close on April 18. And in this course, you will have this is the most comprehensive training resources we have on the Madrid system. We will go from the basic of the Madrid system through the role of the Office of Origin, the role of the designated contracting party, all the communication with WIPO, all the online services, and all the transactions related to the management of your registration. And at the end of the course, you will receive, if you follow the course and if you complete the multiple choice question, you will receive a certificate of attendance of having completed that course. So as a newcomer in the Madrid system, that could be a useful investment of your time to register for this course, which is free of charge. It's about 15 hours in total, and it's spread among 7 weeks. Then, if you want to learn more about the history of the Madrid system, so here it will be more like for general knowledge and to understand the origin and why the Madrid system has been created in the wake of the first globalization in the 19th century. We also recently launched a Madrid podcast series, and we have currently 2 episodes being published about the history of the Madrid system. And this podcast series, I mean, WIPO has other podcast programs. So if you're interested about learning about arbitration and mediation matter, for instance, you could also take advantage of this Madrid podcast. So I would encourage you to discover the history of the Madrid system. And we currently cover from the ancient time to the 19th century. And the second episode is talking about the Paris Convention before the development, the establishment of the Madrid system through the Madrid Agreement. I think I will stop here for my overview of the online services and resources, because I would like to take some questions and maybe give you the opportunity to ask me to demonstrate in more detail some of the online services or to clarify some point on the online services.
Okay, thanks, Benoit. The only 2 questions in the chat were, well, you addressed the one about the availability of the webinar. There was another question. I think that was when Debbie was presenting. The point was made, goods and services must be within the scope of the basic mark. Are there implications for educational institutions, including marks, other than regular institutional trademarks? Affiliate companies providing research goods and services operating under said university budget. That was from the University of the West Indies.
I believe this question from UE is for Debbie.
Okay, Debbie, yes. Can you see the question, Debbie? Because perhaps if you read it.
I see the question, but I don't know if I understand it.
That makes no
So if you talk about fee implications, I wonder if this is, so they're talking about filing with through a national office if there are any deduction of fees because there are educational institutions. Maybe if Mina Douglas is still on, maybe she can clarify what she means, make sure we provide the right information.
Yes, I think that's good. Let me see if there are any other questions in the chat.
I saw there were a couple of questions concerning the time for making a decision and also which date is the effective date.
Okay.
And I don't know if we will save those for the Q&A session later on.
Well, if you want to address them now, because Benoit has opened up for questions and answers.
Okay. So I saw there was a question concerning, is the effective date of trademark from the date of filing or the date of approval? So in the Madrid system, protection is from the date of the international registration. And that will be the applicable filing date in the designated members. And the date of the international registration is in most cases the date of receipt of the international application by the office of origin. I think many officers will consider the date they grant protection to be the starting date for possible non-use cancellation actions, 3 or 5 years. There was also a question concerning transformation, if I could repeat or clarify that. And I said that if the basic mark ceases to have effect, the office of origin will, if it happens within the 5-year period, counted from the date of the international registration, they will then notify WIPO and WIPO will cancel the international registration to the same extent. So this is why it's so important to only use Madrid once you have a solid foundation. But if your international registration will be canceled because the basic mark died, you have a procedure called transformation to make sure that you can continue securing protection of your rights. And this means that within a time limit of 3 months from the date of cancellation of the international registration by WIPO, you can go to the countries that were covered by your registration and where you would like to continue securing protection, but you will need to file a national application. So you're moving out the Madrid system and into the national route. So you will need to file a national application and follow all the national requirements, through a local attorney using local forms. The advantage you get once you have to go through transformation is the filing date in these offices will be the date you had protection of the country through Madrid. So you will go back to either the date of the international registration or the date of the subsequent designation. And one final comment I would like to make, there was a comment from, I think from John Webley concerning the time limit the officers have to make a decision that it's fairly long. And I said that it's a maximum 12 or 18 months. The default option for a member coming in is 12 months unless they make a declaration to extend this to 18. This does not mean, though, that officers will sit on the designations till 12 or 18 months before they make a decision. These officers will process Madrid designations in the same tempo as they process national applications. So we see that the average time period within which we get a decision is usually around 6 to 9 months. And that sort of follows the same speed that they process decisions in national applications.
Thanks, Debbie. I don't think there are any other questions, but I would like to direct the attention of the participants to the chat where Benoit has placed the link for registration for the course that he just mentioned. And there is also, he has also encouraged us to sign up for the Madrid News, which would obviously, as the name suggests, gives us information on the whole Madrid system. So I think, and he has also placed the link. Thank you so much, Benoit, for all of the previous webinars. So if you go to the chat, you can copy those links and register for the course. sign up for the Madrid News and also to have access to previous webinars on the Madrid system. Okay, there's Colette McIntosh wanted to know if renewals could be done through the system if the original registration was done through the system.
Okay, so you would like for me to take that?
Yes.
So if you have an international registration, that will have to be renewed before WIPO. You cannot renew it before national offices, but you have to renew it directly before WIPO. And once we record the renewal, it will have effect in all the countries covered by the renewal.
Okay, there's another question. What is the difference between regional and international registration?
So you know that I mentioned the national route, the regional route, and the international route. So the international route is Madrid. The regional route is you have systems, you have regional systems. So you have the European Union, you have WAPI, which is the African organization. And this means that if you seek protection, for example, to the European Union, and you get protection, you will get protection in the whole geographical area covered by that union. So that's a regional registration. But both the EU and WAPI are also members of Madrid, so you can cover both these large territories by designating them in the Madrid system.
A follow-up to the question from Marna Douglas. He wrote, for example, if an affiliate company's marks are registered under the regular institutional mark, can it facilitate a challenge if the owner is no longer with the institution?
I think this will be according to national law, who's the owner of the trademark. And I think this shows the importance of making sure that the right person or the right name is on the application form. So you don't put a specific physical person because you may be vulnerable if that person leaves. I think that's as far as I can provide information to that.
Yeah, and I guess it would also depend on the intellectual property policy of the institution. So as you said, Debbie, it depends on the terms under which the agreement was made. I don't see any other questions in the chat. So Benoit, would you like to continue now? Or are you all finished with us?
I mean, thank you, Claire. I think I'm pretty much done in terms of giving an overview. So what I'm willing to, I'm available if you have some specific questions on specific online services. I could demonstrate them in more details if we have time.
All right, well, we have one more presentation, Benoit. Adrienne Thompson, our Trademarks, Designs, and Geographical Indications Manager. She's going to do a presentation. So perhaps we could have Adrienne present, and then we just take the final questions after her presentation. Okay.
Very well.
So I'm going to invite Adrienne to do her presentation now, and then we'll take any questions right after.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you.
Okay, great. So let me just share my screen. Let me know if you can see the presentation.
It's not in presentation mode, but we can see it. Yes, it's perfect. Perfect, we can see it.
Okay, great. So thanks for your attention thus far, and thanks for giving us your time this morning. I know that we've covered a lot of information, so I won't keep you much longer. What I intend to do is just quickly summarize some of the concepts that Debbie already touched on in detail. Yeah, just to reinforce the key things to remember in terms of using the system. So again, as Debbie already mentioned, the Madrid system is just another route to filing. So now you have another option to consider when you are going to protect your trademarks. And so depending on if you are going to be protecting or exporting your goods to multiple countries, then it might be a good option for you. But for MSMEs who are pretty much focused on the domestic markets, then it would be really important to ensure that your trademarks are protected locally. And remember that the Madrid system is a closed system, so in order to use the system, you need to have local protection anyway. So it's good to make sure that you shore up your local protection. So Debbie already covered a lot of the benefits of the system. One of the main ones being that, it's centralized filing and management, which can be really useful if you have trademarks in multiple jurisdictions. Okay, so again, this is just a quick reference for how the system works. And so JIPO will be your office of origin if you are pretty much based in Jamaica. And so once you have your basic mark in Jamaica, then you can use that as the launching pad to enter the Madrid system to get your international registration. So that will be stage 1 of the process. WIPO does formalities at stage 2. And then stage 3 is where you'll have the designated contracting parties. So the countries that you select or designate for your protection, they will do substantive examination based on their laws to see if your trademark will basically be granted protection in those jurisdictions. Okay, so again, just to reinforce, you have to be entitled to use the system. And so in order to be entitled, you need to have some kind of connection to Jamaica, be it domicile, nationality, or commercial business in Jamaica. And then, as I've said before, you need to have a basic mark to be able to use the system, because you need a basic mark to be the parent for your international application. So for those people who don't have basic marks already, or are interested in obtaining a local application, this slide basically outlines what you need to do to obtain a trademark at JIPO. And so the form is a TM1, and in that form, you're going to submit your particulars. You're going to show us what the mark that you're intending to protect is, and you're going to state what goods or services the mark will be applied to. After you submit the form and you pay the relevant fees, then we will examine the mark at JIPO to see if there are any marks on our local register that conflict with the mark, or if the mark passes muster under our domestic legislation. So your mark shouldn't be scandalous. It shouldn't contain anything that could be offensive to particular groups, no profanities, or if you're going to be using things like the country name or traditional cultural expression, so that could be associated with the Rastafari or Maroon community, for example, then you need to get consent from those communities to use their traditional knowledge or traditional cultural expression. If you're going to be using national emblems or symbols in your mark, such as the flag or the hummingbird, and you need to get the consent from the Office of the Prime Minister to use those symbols in your trademarks. So we look for all of those things at JIPO, and if we accept your mark, then we'll publish it in the JIPO Trademark Journal, and publication will then allow people to oppose the registration of the mark. So there's a 2 months opposition period after publication. And if no one opposes, then the mark will proceed to registration on the local register. So that's the steps that you have to take in order to get essentially your basic registration that you're going to use to enter the Madrid system for the international registration. So for the local registration, the fees currently upon application is 7,800 for registration in one class. If you have more than one class, then it's an additional 2,200 for each additional class. Once we examine and accept the mark, then you pay another $10,000 for the publication and registration of the mark on the local register. So I have the fees asterisked because we're anticipating that the new trademark amendment rules will come in force any day now. And so once the new law passes, then it's going to affect the filing fees. So if you're on the fence, or if you have your application pending, we suggest that you file it as soon as possible before the new law comes in, because the fees are going to increase. Okay. So once you have the basic registration, again, so then this is where you're gonna use that as the basic mark to be the parent for your Madrid application, your international application. And so as Debbie talked about, you're gonna fill out the MM2 using the Madrid application assistant. So I have the link here as a quick reference. And then you're gonna submit the PDF or the completed MM2 form to JIPO. So you have the option of bringing it in as you would for other national applications. So you can bring it into JIPO, or you can email the PDF to madridfiling@jipo.gov.jm. Again, that's on the slide for reference. And then as Debbie discussed, you can make the payment directly to JIPO. So we're gonna examine your MM2 and then certify that what you have in your MM2 corresponds with your basic registration on the local register. And so once we certify, then JIPO will do their formalities check. So Debbie already covered this. We don't need to stick on this slide. And then again, like I said before, stage 3 is where all the countries that you designate will do their substantive examination. And so Debbie already covered fees extensively, so I'm not going into too much detail, but just for reference, there's the fee calculator link that you can use to get an idea of what the fees will be for your international applications. And also, please be advised that JIPO will be charging a handling fee. And so there's a $15,000 handling fee when you submit your international MM2s at JIPO. So, and then, yeah, basically that's it. Remember that you need to have a local registration to be able to use the Madrid system. But once that's taken care of, then you'll be able to access, over 100 countries if you're so inclined for registration of your marks internationally. So that's it. So we can move to the Q&A. Let me just stop sharing and turn over to you, Ms. Bellamy.
Thanks so much, Adrienne. And in the questions, okay, we had a lot of thanks, but no, I think there was one question. If we could see the fee slide again for JIPO, I think that's the most recent question, because the other questions were addressed. Then we'll address the question about whether patents fall under Madrid. So the only remaining question is to the fee slide for JIPO, if that could be shared again.
Okay, let me pull it up. Let me just share the screen again.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so yeah, that's the fee side. So 7,800 upon application, and then another 10,000 after acceptance. Those are the fees that Draco.
All right. Thanks so much, Adrian. Thank you for sharing. I haven't seen any additional questions. I'm not sure if Debbie or Benoit would like to share anything else before we close.
I think I have nothing to add.
Yeah. Benoit?
Yes, I may have something to add. I mean, I just wanted to tell you that we also have a series of case studies when we share successful stories of users, trademark holders, company having make use of the Madrid system to successfully protect and manage their trademark portfolio. So I will post the link in the chat, and we look forward to develop, create successful stories from Jamaican users. So we look to receiving candidature, I mean, application, I say application, but we look forward to have a Jamaican company reaching out to us and to tell their story, and we'll be happy to publish them on our website and to share it with our Madrid user community.
Okay, thanks so much for that, Benoit. And there's one question. Yes, you can walk into Draco. We accept walk-in customers, so that's not an issue. I just want to thank Adrian, Benoit, Debbie, for your presentations, which were to the point and quite comprehensive. I'm sure the persons who participated would have benefited, and for all the information that was shared and the links, the responses to the questions, thank you so much. And also looking forward to the next webinar when Peter will have an opportunity to share on e-filing. So you can just note that for all the participants that we'll soon have another webinar that deals specifically with e-filing. I want also to acknowledge with thanks the participation of David Moles from the World Intellectual Property Organization. Thank him for his graciousness, because he presented, he yielded, he presented to allow the Honorable Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Senator Aubin Hill, to present. And we welcome the support and participation of our minister, I think, which signals the importance and relevance of the Madrid system to the government and people of Jamaica. In our participants, I noticed that our former chairman, Peter Golson, was present. So I'd like to acknowledge his presence. The head of the Intellectual Property Committee of the Jamaica Bar Association, Diane Daly, she was also present. And I saw, and I'm not sure if I've overlooked anyone, but I noted that the heads of the intellectual property offices in Belize and in St. Vincent and the Grenadines were also present. So Lakeisha and Karina, it was great seeing you. And I'd like to thank also everyone from JICO, because this was a team effort, and it has been a team effort from day one. Everyone in here has participated and played a role in Jamaica becoming a member of the Madrid Protocol. I'd like to also acknowledge for this webinar, special thanks to Glynis Young, who did the administrative work, which facilitated all of us being here today, and also the team from WIPO for their work in this process. And to each of you who joined and who stayed the course, thank you so much, and we look forward to welcoming you to another webinar. And I'm just going to use this opportunity to encourage you to visit our different social media sites, because a very important week is coming up. Intellectual Property Day is on the 26th of April, but we're celebrating the whole week. We start from World Book and Copyright Day, which is on the 23rd of April. So please visit our website and join and participate in our events and activities. The focus this year is on youth. So it's really an exciting time that we're going to be having, and we invite you to join us. So thank you so much, everybody. Have a good day. Have a great evening for those of you who are in Geneva. Bye, everyone, and thanks again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.